Hello and welcome to part 4 of our 5-part series on the hero's journey, where we're exploring Joseph Campbell's essential masterpiece, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. We've been studying in our first few videos the whole monomyth cycle, the departure, the initiation, and the return, those 3 major phases. And we're taking a look at all of the 17 substages within those 3 major phases. So we've dealt with the departure already, where we left home, we answered the call, we endured the refusal of the call, we were supported by the supernatural aid, we crossed the first threshold, we fell into the belly of the whale, and we came out into this initiation phase, the second major phase. And that's what we worked on in the last video, the one before this one. We looked at the first 3 substages of the initiation phase: the road of trials, the meeting with the goddess, and woman as temptress. So once we endured, the belly of the whale, and once we came to understand that the supernatural aid was within us, or even in the cosmos all around us, then we were able to get on the road of trials and face the monsters and go on the quests and do the deal with our fellowship, right? We talked about that quite a bit last time as well, that for the hero, there's often a team of people or creatures around who, through that psychological lens, through that Jungian lens, really represent simply the externalization of all of the fragmented pieces of our psyche that take form out here as the egoic mercenary or the self-sacrificing altruistic saint, etc. And in Jungian terms, the whole purpose of this hero's journey is to move closer and closer to integrating all of those aspects of ourselves into our best and most authentic life, making peace with our own shadow and our own light, and thereby fulfilling all of our potentials. So that's really maybe what the bigger picture is about. Then last time we also did the meeting with the goddess, which has many, many layers. On the literal level, it's sort of boy meets girl. There's a love story often here. But as we noticed last time, also the goddess represents the totality of all that is. That's how Campbell put it. So psychologically and philosophically, the eros gamos, the sacred marriage, is you and I moving as heroes of our own lives, moving into deeper integration with the totality of life, moving out of infancy and dependency into independence and hopefully finally mastery. So that means letting in the realization of oneness with the other and with the all that is. And the third substage we looked at in the last video was that temptation piece, right? The woman as temptress, he calls it, Campbell calls it. And so, of course, on the literal level, there's that. The sirens singing on the shore, trying to pull us into our death on the rocks. So, a little bit of a kind of a puritanical vibe almost, that, your lust is going to destroy you. But immediately jumping over to a more psychological and even spiritual read, there is certainly the potential danger that the hero's exhausted, right? You've been through an ordeal, you've about died 10 times, and you're just tired of fighting monsters. And it's so tempting just to kind of want to go and rest and have some pleasure, some me time. But that can often be a deleterious detour for the hero that you can get stuck at instead of remaining true to the mission and enduring whatever needs to be endured to become finally who you have always been and who you are to be. That's the ultimate prize. So today we're exploring the next 3 substages in that bottom half, in the initiation phase. And I think we're getting to some of the most confusing and bewildering and profound and ineffable phases: the atonement with the Father, the apotheosis, and the ultimate boon. So let's begin. Now, assuming our hero has survived this far, and that's a big if, right? But assuming she or he has, then now she faces or he faces the atonement with the Father. And keep in mind, again, always the literal, the psychological, and the spiritual or philosophical lenses that we're just going to pick them up and use them in different ways and look through them at different times to reveal more and more and more about what these substages really are. So let's talk about atonement with the Father. Look, Campbell is obviously dipping into Christianity here for a really powerful term in Christian theology, atonement. And if you're Christian and you've studied this, you know what that means. It means when Jesus died on the cross, as Christianity teaches and as Christians believe, that sacrificial death, talk about a hero's journey, that sacrificial death was a trigger of something, of a cosmic transformation, of the reunification of humanity and God, which had been in exile since the Garden of Eden. So in Christian teaching, Jesus is the atonement. His death facilitates the atonement, the at-one-ment of humanity and God and divinity. So Jesus saves us in the normal Christian way of thinking from isolation, separation, fragmentation, and suffering, and brings us back into the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. So clearly, Campbell's sort of copying that term of atonement and I think using it very appropriately here in this phase. So in the hero's journey, what is the atonement with the Father? This is that substage where the hero must face and confront whatever has ultimate power in his or her life. It could be God. It could be a literal father. Again, on a literal level, think of Luke Skywalker and his father, right? I think George Lucas is just, he's hammering this story out by the book. And so Luke comes to know who his father is, as we all know, Darth Vader, who up to now has been the absolute most terrifying nemesis of the Rebel Alliance. This weirdly tall Nazi helmet, samurai cape, head to toe in black, reads your mind, can choke you from across the room, creepy dad. And in the climactic atonement with the Father moment, when the two are fighting and Darth Vader is dying, and he says to his son, take off this mask, which is also a respirator keeping him alive. And Luke and his father see each other for the first time in that really powerful scene. And so I think Campbell's right when he says that George Lucas did a really beautiful thing there. That Darth Vader had lost his humanity. He'd become the machine of the state. And the state is a machine. And he'd become the uniform. I think we all know how bad that is, how wrong it can go. When police officers you lose their humanity, when service members, Marines, sailors, soldiers lose their humanity and lose the focus of the integrity of the mission, and now they're just heavily armed killing machines. That's a cautionary tale, right? Darth Vader is how not to do it. His hero's journey did not go well. He fell for the temptation, right? That Luke must avoid, that we all must avoid. And that is to say, to retain our virtue, to retain our humanity. So there's a really literal kind of atonement with the Father where Luke and his father kind of see each other for the first time. And suddenly in that moment, Luke realizes that Darth Vader isn't just pure unmitigated evil. He's a human being like you and I, full of all the opposites, all the paradoxes, all the contradictions. And that's part of what atonement with the Father means. It means coming to see that the sacred source of everything is the sacred source of everything. And you don't get to just pick the good stuff and push the bad stuff away. That's part of growing up, and that's part of the atonement with the Father. Only slightly less literally than the Luke Darth Vader story is Harry Potter and Voldemort. Again, not literally his father, but in a way, right? As two master wizards, there's a father-son thing. And Harry has a little bit of Voldemort in him, his essence in him. And so again, we're so used to, through a series of books and films, thinking of Voldemort as a Darth Vader-like monster, pure unmitigated evil. But in that climactic fight between the two, you almost have a little sympathy for Voldemort. You see, as Harry begins to have, and Harry begins to recognize his own dark side and has to figure out how to integrate the shadow with the light. Thinking of Dorothy, Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz, there's a lot of atonement with the father there. Maybe even when they went to see the Wicked Witch, that was a kind of atonement with the father, because they had to certainly confront the most powerful thing in their world. But we also, in a previous video, we associated with the Wicked Witch of the West with Threshold Guardian, because they had to go through her to complete the quest, to get what they wanted. And what they wanted, of course, was Dorothy wanted to go home, the Cowardly Lion wanted courage, the Tin Man needed a heart, and the Scarecrow, if I only had a brain, needed a brain. And so that is what they wanted. And so in their first meeting with the wizard said, sure, I can give you all that stuff. No problem. I'll help you just go get the Wicked Witch's broom. They're like, okay. So they went and got the broom, which turned out to be really kind of meaningless. But as we discussed before, if they had not developed the courage to face the Threshold Guardian, they would not be ready for what's next. So they get back to Oz and like, all right, we're going to see the wizard and collect our prizes. And of course, that's when it all falls apart. That's when they realize the wizard is just a regular guy behind a curtain, pulling levers. It's all a con. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You know, it falls apart. But then the wizard pins on them their prizes. He says to the Cowardly Lion, now you have courage. The Tin Man, now you have a heart. And the Scarecrow, now you have a brain. Here's your diploma from the university. And to Dorothy, he helps her get home. So they each achieve their prize when they again face the wizard, face the father, and then they realize that, as the good witch says later, you've always had those qualities within you. Cowardly Lion, you had courage in you. You only needed to go through these ordeals for it to rise to the surface. The Tin Man, you had heart. You only needed these ordeals for it to rise to the surface, etc. So that's the deeper message. That's what atonement with the Father can do. And it connects you to that. I'm thinking of Bilbo in The Hobbit, and for him it's the dragon, right? Smaug. And that dragon represents the most powerful thing that he has to rush toward and confront and deal with. So the encounter with the Father, the atonement with the Father, it either kills the hero or damn near kills them, but it certainly transforms them. I was looking around in my own life or in this society for an example of this. And I thought, this popped in my head, let's see what you think about my example. Now, I don't know if anybody does this anymore. I really don't. But you see it in old movies, right? When a young man wants to marry a young woman, it used to be a custom that the young man would go ask the girl's father for her hand in marriage, right? Again, it's kind of vaguely sexist, that it's the father's property and now it becomes the husband's property. Stripping all of that off of it and looking at it through the lens of atonement with the Father, it seems to have some value, that this ritual where the young man must confront the Father and say to the Father, sir, can I come into your den with this wood paneling? And you probably have a gun in the drawer there, but can I talk to you? And the Father says, sure. And this young man, who doesn't have any money, doesn't have much prospects, doesn't have a house, doesn't have a job, has to look at this man who has all those things and who's the father of the girl you want to marry and say, sir, can I take your daughter away from all this into a life of risk and a road of trials, if you will? And this is a man who has spent every waking minute of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year for 22 years protecting his daughter, thinking tirelessly about how to shield her from harm. And now you just want to take her away from all of that safety. And that's a little frightening. That's a tough conversation to have. And yet, in this context of the atonement with the Father, if a young man is not capable of walking up to a man twice his age and saying those things, then he sure as hell isn't ready for the trials of marriage, which are going to test him in ways that he cannot even imagine. So this atonement with the Father, again, this confrontation with this power, again, in that case, very literal, a father, that symbolizes, I guess, for us how rituals are reenactments of myth, Campbell reminds us. And so I don't know if that example holds water or not, but at least it's a little closer to home than, meeting the wizard or whatever. So this stage, the atonement with the Father, finalizes and concretizes your authentic readiness to earn the next stages, the apotheosis and the boon. You're not going to be able to receive what you were about to receive if you haven't grown into this powerful stance to be able to confront and become and recognize your oneness with the Father, to enter into the world of power. You spend so much of your life in dependency, and now you are becoming independent and hopefully on your way toward mastery. Let me hear from Joseph Campbell here. Let me read to you just a couple of quick passages from his chapter on the atonement with the Father, and see how Campbell frames this. It's big. It's big. This is one of the most profound stages, I think. Campbell writes, "The paradox of creation, the coming of the forms of time out of eternity, is the germinal secret of the Father. It can never be quite explained. Therefore, in every system of theology, there is an umbilical point, an Achilles tendon which the finger of mother life has touched, and where the possibility of perfect knowledge has been impaired. The problem of the hero is to pierce himself and therewith his world precisely through that point, to shatter and annihilate that key knot of his limited existence." Wow. We're talking about ultimate reality here, aren't we? We're not talking about the Wizard of Oz or Darth Vader anymore. This is like God stuff, the ineffable matrix out of which everything comes. That's what we're meeting and unifying with at this stage. Just a few more lines from Campbell. "The problem of the hero going to meet the Father is to open his soul beyond terror to such a degree that he will be ripe to understand how the sickening and insane tragedies of this vast and ruthless cosmos are completely validated in the majesty of being." The hero transcends life with its peculiar blind spot, and for a moment rises to a glimpse of the source. He beholds the face of the Father, understands, and the two are atoned. That's big. It doesn't get any bigger. So that's atonement with the Father. I told you at the top, these are some of the most profound and really ineffable sub-stages of the entire hero's journey. Let's get to our second one, apotheosis. Crazy word, right? It's not a word we normally run around using. Now, this strictly speaking means to deify. To apotheosize is to deify. This is a godlike state beyond all the pairs of opposites. Well, look at what we just read, right? So you are moving into a very lofty, otherworldly kind of recognition, enlightenment, nirvana, kingdom of heaven. A lot of our religious heroes are going to be prime examples of this kind of transcendent realization. This could be a physical death, or it could at least, as it is in the Jesus story, or it could be the death of the ego, as it is in the Buddha story. Christ dying on the cross, and then when he comes back, he's completely God now in the Christian story. When Buddha faces the three temptations from the demon Maya, and talk about a threshold guardian, and then attains nirvana and awakens and attains enlightenment, that stillness, the absence of agitation and fear, the reconciliation, in fact, the synthesis of all opposites, or perhaps just moving beyond the plane where opposites even have power anymore. The great Sufi mystic poet Rumi has this beautiful passage. He says, "Out beyond all ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about." So Rumi really, he really gets it, and like great poets do, he really puts it down on the page. So apotheosis is difficult to talk about. We can see it in stories like Jesus and Buddha. But now, from this apotheosis stage, now from this transcendent state, restored, reborn, glorified, enlarged, rejuvenated. And in some of the stories, it just means rested, right? And strong enough and ready to go on. The hero is ready to receive the ultimate boon. So let's move into our third substage in this video, the ultimate boon. Boon, funny old-fashioned word. It means treasure or prize or reward. It's the thing you've been searching for on the quest. This is the attainment of what the hero set out to achieve. And in fact, all the previous substages were designed to strengthen you, to train you, to prepare you, to purify you, to test your worthiness, and to strengthen your body, mind, and soul, so that you would be ready for this moment to pick up and receive the treasure and hold it in your hands. But yeah, like, now what? So think of Gilgamesh and his search for immortality. Remember the Sumerians, now we're going back 4,000 years, right? The first story on earth with a protagonist, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh, among other things, was looking for immortality. The Sumerians did not believe in life after death. So he finally finds this old immortal guy called Utnapishtim. Now, we talked about him and we discussed the flood long ago, because Utnapishtim tells the flood story to Gilgamesh, because Utnapishtim has been alive for like ever. He's immortal. And so Gilgamesh is like, "Hey, I want to be immortal. What can you do to help me out here?" And Utnapishtim helps. There's this weed growing in the bottom of the river, so tie some rocks on your feet and go down and get it. But as happens in so many European folktales too, once he achieves the boon, he finds that he cannot escape with it. He tries to leave, but I think a snake eats it or something like that. And a lot of the fairy tales, you find the golden treasure, but in the middle of the dark forest. And as you find your way out of the forest, with each next step you take back to the village, it dissolves and disappears. So I'm getting ahead of myself, because these are the challenges that lay ahead for the hero. Once you get the boon, now the challenge is going to be like, how do I get this home to help out everybody with this great prize, this great elixir, or whatever it is that I've received. Percival, or in other stories, Galahad, looking for the Holy Grail. Not only, again, through the literal lens, the cup that Jesus ate out of and drank out of, but again, more symbolically, the representation of all transcendent knowledge and liberating awareness, that transcendence of the field of opposites, that oneness, again, that integration. That's what the Grail really is about, bringing what is above together with what is below, the sacred and the profane, and again, transcending all the dualities. I think in The Wizard of Oz, the Fellowship, Dorothy and Tin Man and Scarecrow and Lion, after they face the Wicked Witch, which is a kind of an atonement, again, as we just discussed, they return to the wizard to collect their boon, and that's when they realize, as I said before, that the wizard isn't really somebody who can help them. He was a facilitator of them uncovering their own boons, their own prize. That is the big reveal of The Wizard of Oz, that everything you seek is already within you. And this is, in fact, the mystical teachings of all the religious and wisdom traditions in the world. It's the great mystical teaching in Hinduism, certainly, that you are that. This divinity that you seek, it's what you are. And so you don't have to go running around to find it. You just have to stop, sit down, shut up, meditate, and realize what you are. And through the process of the hero's journey, or through any spiritual practice, layer after layer after layer of distortion and confusion burn away, so that the innate courage, what are all the things that Dorothy and her friends are looking for? Courage, intelligence, heart, compassion, and to go home, to reunify. Those things are all with us, and they have been with us all along. So the hero's journey always ends right back home, as the movie The Wizard of Oz ends right back home. Jesus puts it this way, that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Don't look over here for it, and don't look over there for it. And in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, the Father's kingdom is lying all over the earth, all about you, only you don't see it. So the Buddha refers to this realization as awakening. It's as if in ordinary consciousness we're asleep and we need to wake up. And so I think of it this way sometimes. We don't have a proximity problem. We have a perception problem. It's not that the prize is far away, not proximus, but distant. That's not the problem. It's right here. The problem is I just don't see it. The scales have not yet fallen from my eyes. And all of the ordeals of the hero's journey are to clean the windows of perception so that we might more easily see what has been true all along from the very beginning. Only we simply could not have seen it without having gone through this ordeal. That's why the hero's journey is so essential for Campbell and for so many others, because this is the big picture, right? What the hero's journey is really about is not about going to get a prize and then coming back to the village and going, look, here's my prize, everything's cool now. It's about each of us again and again, because each of us goes through many hero's journeys in our life, right? Each of us again and again gradually becoming more and more integrated, more and more wise, calmer, more ably willing to perceive beauty and kindness, and more ably to embody loving kindness and compassion and the consciousness of service, moving from fear to love. That's how Gandhi put it. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. And for the ancient Greeks too, the most important virtue was always courage, because without courage, none of the other virtues can be realized. So the hero's journey is a celebration. It's a pageantry of courage, what it costs you and what the rewards are. So next time, in our final video, video 5 of our 5-part series, The Hero's Journey, we're going to take up that third of the 3 major phases called the return. And there's a bunch of substages we want to look at there. So I'll move through them a little more quickly. But basically, just to set it up, the problem now is going to be, I got my boon. I took care of that father business. I think I'll just stay right here. It's kind of nice here. I like it. I know a lot more. I have a lot more. I am a lot more. I'll just stay here. Yeah. And so remember the refusal of the call. That's where we're going to start next time. The refusal of the return. Why would you want to get back on the road? Why would you want to slog further and try to carry this boon, whatever it is, whether it's the healing elixir that will restore fertility to your crops, or that will kill the evil demon that's ruining everything, or whatever it is in the fairy tales and myths. So that's one of the substages that we have yet to experience together. And I'm looking forward to that work. Thanks for staying with me through now episode 4, as we wrap up and get ready to queue up episode 5 of The Hero's Journey. See you on the other side.